If you're nervous and unsure, you're lacking confidence, you tend not to look people in the eye and you kind of like look around because you don't want to be revealed. Like, you don't want someone to figure out that you're not really good at this. And so looking people, it's like, I don't know, it makes you very vulnerable looking somebody directly in the eye. And so, it's natural for people who are less confident to not want to look people in the eye.
Oh, do we have a good title for all of you beautiful ladies today? How to turn a guy on instantly with your eyes. And right before we started this podcast, I asked Gary a really dorky question that he dorkily knew the answer to, which was, are eyes even an organ? And what did I learn just now?
No. Well, they're part of the brain technically, right? It's actually part of the brain that you can actually see from the outside because the eyes are directly connected to the brain. It's all part of the same system.
Nerd alert. He learned that when he was getting his PhD.
Somewhere along the way. It's either that, it's an intro psych textbook thing. I don't know.
Anyways, I was going to talk about this one organ that we have that can instantly turn on men. And it is true, actually. This is not just a clickbaity title. So today, we're going to be talking about how your eyes can actually magnetically build attraction with men. And if we use them in the way that we're going to be talking about today, you're going to see actually quite a difference in how men are going to perceive you and respond to you. And if you use your eyes the wrong way, actually, that can also repel men. So this is an interesting podcast today, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a lot about the eyes, and it's partly because, guys, when it comes to attraction, are visual creatures, right? I mean, we all are, men and women both are, but men especially. And so one of the other things we know about the brain is that we register how physically attractive someone is, not in the first minute, not in the first day. It's milliseconds. It's instantaneously, practically. And it's actually, how someone looks is like the one thing you can know about them without literally knowing anything about them at all. And so, the eyes are such a powerful organ / part of the brain when it comes to attraction. And so there's something really super simple, though, that you can do rather than like, I like this topic because there's so many things about attraction where it's like it's physical appearance. And so like you have to work out more or,
wear makeup.
There's all that kind of stuff. Like, no. Like this is something anybody can do. It's super simple. And it doesn't involve you changing your physical appearance or going on a shopping spree to change your wardrobe.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that about how quickly humans are incredibly judgmental creatures. And within those the milliseconds to 3 seconds of meeting someone, typically how we feel about that person is how we're going to feel about that person 1 to 3 years and beyond down the line. And there's some really interesting research about that. But I do remember with Jessica, like the moment I saw her and she smiled and we made eye contact, I was like, oh my God. I remember saying to my buddy, I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like it was crazy. I don't want to say it was love at first sight because I don't believe in that, but it was a heavy liking at first sight.
I like that. Should be a new term for us. Heavy liking. I like that.
Heavy liking. Oh my God. Heavy
liking. So what you said in that was very sweet. I love that. Was very romantic.
Was it sweet? I don't know.
It was until it wasn't. And then what you said in there, which is like you saw her smile, good. And then you said, and then we made eye contact.
Yeah.
It's all about eye contact, right? Yeah. It's huge. And thanks to our phone and how much we spend time looking like this and not making eye contact with people in our everyday world, in real life, eye contact in a dating context is more important than it's ever. And so we all kind of know what eye contact is. And it's like, so what's the big deal? Well, research shows that eye contact helps our memory. Like we have better memory for people when we've made eye contact with them. We better remember those conversations. And we're just better and more accurate with what we're thinking about, right? When we make eye contact. There's also one of the most famous studies, I think, in all of relationship science was actually done by my PhD advisor, Art Aaron. And it's this idea, the 36 questions, you probably have heard about this, right? It's the 36 questions that and people will say like it makes anybody fall in love, but it's really 36 questions to generate closeness between two people. And so people, couples would come in, strangers, they'd ask each other a bunch of questions, and then they would see how close they thought afterwards. One of the parts of that experimental procedure that people don't really talk about, but was very much part of it, is there was a section where the two strangers would just sit there and hold eye contact with each other for a minute. So they would just,
yeah,
right? And so you can't do that without starting to feel some level of connection, because in like an evolutionary sense, eye contact is either done as a threat,
right,
or if it's held, it's between people who are comfortable with each other.
yeah.
And so it's kind of like a hack or a trick to kind of like, if we're able to maintain eye contact for that long, we must have a connection. Or at least I feel safe enough in your presence to not think you're about to murder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think of the opposite is someone who you meet and they're just kind of looking around constantly. Actually, I met a guy, he stuck with me. I was in Portland, Maine this past weekend with Jessica, and I met this guy at a bar. We were like playing pool, and he shook hands, but he'd never made eye contact with me once. And I thought to myself, there's something off about this dude. I
Right.
mean, and there was actually, it turns out he was just like, he's kind of a sketchy dude, for a number of reasons. But you just can't trust someone who's not able to actually make eye contact. And the longer that you hold eye contact, the more trust that you can really build with a person. It's interesting.
Yeah. And so, eye contact, I think this isn't particularly revelatory that eye contact is important, but it's important to get it right. Because if you, in a dating context, hold eye contact too long, you're going to give off those like scary, obsessive girlfriend vibes.
Hi. Okay, I'll be the test subject. So no, I don't know.
Yeah, there's like a famous internet meme where it's like
yeah, that's
right.
good. Yeah.
Now the other direction is, not necessarily the guy in the pool hall is not making it. It's just like too little eye contact.
Yeah.
Like it's just, if you're not making enough and you're just kind of like constantly like looking around, it just seemed disinterested, even if you might actually be super, super interested. And so, this is something that seems obvious. Maybe it seems minor, but it's actually something you have to get right, because getting it right, you're, massive impact, turn a guy on. Get it wrong, you're going to send the wrong signals, and a guy's going to think you're not interested.
Yeah. So Goldilocks, what is the magic amount? We don't want to have too much or too little. So what is it? Walk us through it.
Again, this is like one of those things I was curious about. And so I was like, maybe I wonder if researchers have looked at, is there like an ideal number or ratio? And sure enough, they have. So it was actually some research that came out of Michigan State, and they found that when you're speaking, you want to maintain eye contact about half of the time. So 50%. So eye contact, look away, fine. Half and half. When you're listening though, what do you think? Do you think you should be more eye contact or less?
More.
Yeah, dead on, right? So it's about 70%. 70% is kind of a hard number to make sense, but it's like 3 out of 4, 3/4. It's about, that's 70. So it's like for every 3 minutes you spend making eye contact, you can have about a minute where you look away. So it's this 50, they call it the 50-70 rule. So when you're speaking 50%, when you're listening 70%. And so any eye contact though should last, they say, about 4 to 5 seconds. So it's not like eye contact, like constantly darting around, looking away. But it's also 4 to 5 seconds. It's not 10 seconds where it's like too long.
Right.
Where it's like you're zoning out almost. And so, it's a 50-70 principle, but it's also, the 4 to 5 second, like on, off, long enough, but not too long.
Yeah. That's really interesting. It's something there was a time in my life where I would actually coach men in person, and I would go out with these guys and help them with their body language. And so much of it was maintaining eye contact and the power of being able to do that. And I wasn't as astute as you are with this research back then and understanding exactly these principles. But there were some men that I would go out with where they would actually make too much eye contact, and it was creeping some women out. It's like, dude, right. Give her a little bit of space, dude. You're like coming into her, you're gazing deeply into her soul, like you're trying to suck it out into your body. And then like, what? It's weird. Hey man, tone it back. And then more often than not, it was not enough eye contact. And so it's so much is just kind of like finding the right balance that really just makes you feel connected with someone.
Yeah, because if you're nervous and unsure, you're lacking confidence, you tend not to look people in the eye, and you kind of like look around because you don't want to be revealed. Like, you don't want someone to figure out that you're not really good at this. And so looking people, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of, it makes you very vulnerable looking somebody directly in the eye. And so,
Yeah.
it's natural for people who are less confident to not want to look people in the eye.
Right.
So, I can imagine that there's some of the listeners who are like, yeah, 50-70 principle, 50%, 70%, like how
How do
that,
I do
like,
that? Come on.
okay, math nerd, like, how do
Yeah.
I actually put that into practice? I bring out my calculator and like,
Yeah.
no, so use the percentage. That's why I said, half and half for when you're speaking and about 3/4 of the time when you're listening. It's as a general principle. Like, so if you end up at 65% on either of them, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just remember, it's less about the percentages, more about engagement. So you just want to make sure that you're being thoughtful and you look like you're listening. You look like you care. And so when you look away, don't dart around, like, but you can just like thoughtfully, like slowly look, not like you're being chased or followed or like, who's behind me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you want to try to look side to side and up and away. Try not to look down. Down is the one direction that just looks a little like when you start looking down, it starts looking less confident and more unsure. And I don't know about you, but these things, I've always felt like Zoom, if there's like an awkwardness to it when you're talking to Zoom, and
Yeah.
it's this looking down thing. When I read about this research, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is part of my problem, because
Right.
your cameras on Zooms are almost always up. But then,
Mm.
like, even when we're doing this now, like, we're different, you're in Boston, I'm down outside of New York City, we're on Zoom, right? And so it's like,
Right.
cameras up here, but like your beautiful face is down over here. And so like I
Yeah.
want to look at you when I speak to you, but it's like looking down, I know looks weird. So it's like, I'm constantly not looking at you to talk. And that's part of what makes Zoom interactions just a little bit tough.
Yeah, you're good at keeping eye contact with the camera. I'm terrible at it. I always want to look at your beautiful mugshot the whole time. And I'm going back and forth. And you're right. I'm probably just that guy who like is always looking down to the ground and very awkwardly, awkward when he's making eye contact. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I haven't really thought of the mechanics of that. I've just always found one thing that makes eye contact much easier, I think, in social settings when you're getting to know someone, it makes it feel more natural, is rather than being head on with someone,
Mhm.
creating a V shape with someone. So it's more of a side to side conversation, so that looking away for a second is a little more natural. Like,
Right.
if you've ever had a conversation with someone and you're just right across from each other and it's maybe 2 feet distance from the two of you,
Sure.
it can feel a little bit too intimate right off the bat, especially if you're just getting to know that person, and looking
Sure.
away is a little awkward because it's like, well, what are you looking at? So just by slightly shifting your body, so it creates that V shape, you're almost more shoulder to the shoulder. This
Mhm.
way you're talking, then you kind of look away for a second, you're listening, and that's a great way to be able to comfortably build that connection with a person and maintain the right type of eye contact.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I like that strategy because it almost lowers the temperature of the interaction a little bit, where it's like when you're dead on straight, like, it's very noticeable when you are or aren't look. It's like, I don't know, it just builds a little bit more of a cushion into the whole experience.
Yeah.
And I think, we're talking about eye contact because, and this is something we both have said a few times before, is like, a lot of times it's not what you're saying to the other person, but it's how you make them feel.
Mm.
And so eye contact and how you look when you're listening is really important. And so there's this concept known as soft eyes. Soft eyes, the technical definition of soft eyes is simultaneously paying attention to what is in front of you and what's off to the sides. And so if you want to have soft eyes, you're kind of looking ahead, but you're really also paying attention to what's going on over here on the sides. And what that's helpful for is allowing you to take in the full context, right? The
Mhm.
big picture. It allows you to pay a little bit more attention to the other person's nonverbal cues, which we know is important. It's like where 55% of communication information comes from is the nonverbals. And so it's basically just having a larger scope field of vision with
Hmm.
soft eyes.
Right. Yeah,
Now,
it's kind of like zooming out while you're talking to the person.
yeah, and so it's like you're not like staring down the freckle on their nose kind of thing. Like that's just a different way of maintaining contact. But like it's more of a whole. I like to think it was more of a holistic kind of thing. And so I knew like the technical, like the periphery, like that's like again, as you like to say, nerd speak. Um, the practical. When I think of soft eyes, and I read a lot about this in preparation for this, what I think the best way to make sure you have soft eyes is it's like a curious expression, like you're hearing a heartwarming story,
Hmm.
right? And it's actually now when I was reading about this, like it's the expression I feel like we both try to have on these podcasts when each other's talking. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
tell me
Ooh.
more, Adam. Sounds
Ooh.
great.
Yeah. Especially on the Notebook one. We're talking about the Notebook.
Yes, very dreamy, very
Oh
dreamy.
yeah.
But it's like that kind of just like it's almost like I
Yeah.
also think it's like when you see pictures of like kittens and puppies, it's
Mm.
like you kind of have this like your eye expression is like oh, or like my wife and I, it was raining on Sunday, so we were watching a lot of Planet Earth, and it was like every time there's like a fuzzy little like grizzly bear or like a penguin, it's like that's
Yeah.
total soft eye expression. Now
Mm.
contrast that with something that's not soft eyes, which non-soft eyes would be like more analytical, skeptical. It's like squinty and furrowed brow. It's like you're not sure about. And I think that's the kind of look that you would give when you're working on a math problem,
Right.
right? Or like trying to figure out the directions on your phone. It's like that's not soft eyes. And so, you know, but in the 70% of the time when you're maintaining eye contact, when you're listening to somebody else, like you want to get in this mentality of this. And now no one's going to be perfect. You're not going to have soft eyes the entire time. And there's probably
No.
times when it doesn't make sense to have the tell me a heartwarming story look. But this is like, well, we talk all the time about strategies that help kind of like 10x your relationship abilities. And so like everybody knows about eye contact, but like, did you know about 50-70? Did you know about soft
Yeah.
eyes? Are you thinking now you're going to have these strategies in your back pocket moving forward to make yourself even more effective?
Yeah. I feel like with all this technicality, it's just worth talking about mindset because I I think when the people who are most comfortable socially and good with eye contact are those that when they meet someone new, they go into it kind of treating that person as if they've known them for a long time. And like that's always something like there's some people you meet where they're just like so friendly and they just want to get to know you and they're talking to you like you've literally been friends for 5 years or you have a long history together and they treat you almost the way that they might treat a close friend. And then you meet some people where they look at you with more of the analytical eyes and they're like, yeah, okay, so tell me more about yourself. Like I can picture meeting a guy who's just like, okay, so yeah. So like, what do you do? What do you like? Tell me more about what do you do? And it was like, I don't know. Versus like a guy's like, hey, just I don't know, like what do you do for work? Yeah, there's a different way, and it does combine the eyes. Notice my eyes even expanded when I said that versus like this squinty look, but it comes from a place of mindset where I just think you just treat everyone like you might treat a close friend in many ways with that warmth and that kindness and then the soft eyes I think will come pretty naturally along the way.
I think the other thing that will help with the soft eyes is something you're really, really good at. And, it's in the same realm of nonverbals is what I think you call it smoking.
Oh, smocking, smiling while talking, baby.
There you go.
Yeah.
So when you smile while you talk, it just kind of forces your eyes to do the right things. And you can't have this like
Mm,
cold analytical eye gaze if you're smiling while you're talking. And so like
mm,
those in combination, I think would be really helpful for folks. Because I know there are definitely people, and I know from talking to women about this, it's like, eye contact can be intimidating. And so one of the little tricks is if you don't want to look directly at somebody's eyes, you can just look at the bridge of their nose and people
mhm.
cannot tell the difference. And
Yep.
so what will happen inevitably is you'll start off doing that and you'll get progressively more comfortable. And then the eye contact thing will just naturally come.
Yeah. This is a trick I've used for years, and it's especially necessary when you meet someone that you are very attracted to. because that is the time where it's hard to continue looking at them deeply into their eyes because it almost builds. It's like for me personally, my brain would go into like overdrive. I'd be like, oh my god, I cannot handle it. Like my brain would explode. Like probably looking at Jessica in her eyes deeply when I first met her, like I probably couldn't handle it. So just stare at the bridge of her nose. They No one can ever tell that you're doing that, and it takes a lot of pressure off of you to stare again deeply into their soul. And it's worked for probably thousands of clients at this point when you use that strategy.
Yeah, and one last very practical strategy bit. I saved it for last because no one likes to hear this, but and everyone's like, yeah, I know. But really, you need to hear it, is put your damn phone away.
Put the phone away. Put it
And not just
away.
like on the table, like away, awake, away. Put it in the next room, put it in your leave it in your, like, nowhere near you. Like,
Yeah. Go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
I was going to say mine right now, currently, because I'm very focused on this, is actually downstairs. It's nowhere near me.
Yeah. It's good. And your IQ goes up when your phone's away, isn't it? Isn't that true? Didn't they say something like that?
Yeah, I was going to say the research shows like when your phone is just around you, like it's divided attention. And so, you don't think like, oh, my phone I'm not on it. It's not, but it's actually like part of you is like, what's going on? What am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? And so by paying attention to that, you don't have your full attention to spend on somebody else.
I'm a huge fan of Do Not Disturb. I'm always on Do Not Disturb on my phone. People know that they have to call me twice in order to ever get through to me. People hate it. They really
Same.
do. But the people that I'm with in real life really appreciate it. And so, look, this advice has been killed to death over the past decade. I feel like those who are going to actually put away their phone will have done it already. But for the small percentage of you that we can push to the other side, there is nothing less attractive to a high value man who respects his time than to be on a first date with a woman who's constantly on her phone. I mean, that would be such a deal breaker for me so quickly, like over, done. Um, and I'm sure the same would go for you, Garrett. Although you love like going out with like the TikTokers and the Snapchatters who do like the selfies. I'm sure you would love that if you were single, right?
Not at all. No, no.
I could just imagine you on a date.
I mean, I enjoy a good TikTok dance like the next fella, but
She's on a date. She's like, no, stop. I got to take a quick selfie and do one of these.
no, I have no aspirations to be an Insta boyfriend, like the guy that follows like you always see these like poor guys that are following their girlfriend around, like, okay, here's another one. And it's like, no,
deal breaker.
Can't do it. Well,
bad.
So, eye contact, I like, we do these like this is very specific, very practical. I like to tie it to like a broader theme. And I think the broader theme with this is that, successful dating relationships, it's all about give and take. And so when you're talking about eye contact, when you're speaking or when you're listening and soft eyes, it's about making sure you're giving and taking and it's mutual. There's a balance, you're connected. And it's, it's a little bit about vulnerability too. And so that vulnerability is going to lead to connection. And, that's just a general mindset that's going to help you in your relationship. And it applies broadly. And it also applies to something specific like eye contact.
And the thing about, and on that note, the thing about body language is you can listen to something like this and be like, okay, there's the 50-70 rule. Be aware of it for like a day. See where you stand on that. If you're like, hey, I'm actually pretty good about this, I think I'm good. Move on. If you're like, hey, I need to work on this, work on it for a week, and chances are you'll start to adapt that behavior, and then you move on. And so it's one of those things like smocking, as an example, which is smiling while talking. That was something I learned myself through just like constant like repeat of failure and or success with connecting with people. And then it just become kind of natural after a while. After like a couple of weeks of just being like, okay, I'm always going to smile while talking. Same thing with eye contact. I used to actually really struggle with eye contact, especially in college, right? I didn't have a lot of confidence, especially with women. And I focused on it. And then so now it's just a natural behavior. So coming out of this today, why don't you just do a quick check-in with yourself? Do you have the soft eyes or do you have the squinty eyes? Are you the type who doesn't make any eye contact? Or are you making maybe perhaps too much eye contact? Do a quick assessment, see how it goes, and adjust accordingly. And that's what strategy is all about, is taking those steps, learning new information, applying it, and then adding it to your arsenal, and then getting the results you want. So I think there's a fun one. I was a little unsure about this one, but I didn't think we could talk 24 minutes about eyes, but I think we did.
Turns out we can. I mean, you're not a finished product. You can always find ways to improve. A little bit of improvement in eye contact, you're on your way to killer conversations and killer relationships.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary. It was fun.
Thanks.